After this, Naruto would say, "That's just fine then. Might as well start getting the preparations ready." Naruto would then proceed to dye his hair fully black, as at this point he would then change his hairstyle and get a haircut by Konan. Yeah, Konan, she would proceed to cut Naruto's hair, being like, "Whoa, you look pretty good today." Naruto would be like, "Shh, quiet. It's not about whether I look good or not." Konan would smile as she would tell him, "Well, you might as well." She would immediately smack Naruto on the top of the head and say, "Yeah, you best believe I am." As from here, she would proceed to say, "Here's your new look." Naruto would look at himself in the mirror thinking, honestly, it's not half bad. And Naruto's story to get into the meat and potato out if Naruto is and it is out in that link. Like within in the original story, we begin this all off on the day of the Nine Tails incident. Just like in the original story, Minato would still end up sacrificing his life by using the Grim Reaper Death Seal to pretty much place the Nine Tails within Naruto. From here, this is where a story truly commences. We begin with a young Naruto about the age of 4 years old. 4 years old, mind you. This Naruto is literally 4 years old. And just at this point, Naruto would pretty much be told that his job is going to be to pretty much infiltrate because they're going to be high that he is. He's going to be pretty much trying not to stand out too much, but also at the same time prove his power. He's just kind of going to be somebody you're stuck in a room with your worst enemy. Just imagine that. The whole time you would be wanting not, you'd be struggling not to go beat them up, you know what I mean? And that's pretty much what Naruto is feeling right now. At this current moment, Naruto is pretty much just like trying to block out the negative thoughts, and he's pretty much fantasizing obliterating the village right now as things stand. But he would then think, Obito said not to. It's not quite the time.
Scene 1A, take 1.
What's your favorite browser extension?
Online shopping is...
From here, he would say, fine, as he would calm down and... What's good, everybody? It's your favorite depressed Dairy Queen worker here, back at it again to drop What If Naruto Had a Time KK Genkai. And with the fact that this What If was actually posted on the community tab and you guys ended up voting for it, I decided, you know what, it was the one that I wanted to do the most anyway, other than What If Hiruzen actually trained Naruto, which I probably still will end up doing, but now I'm not too sure, seeing as not a lot of people voted for it. But you guys can let me know down below in the comment section if you guys still want it. That being said, today's video will be a sponsored one, and it will also be a totally unscripted one, seeing as I couldn't be bothered to write a script for an entire movie. So this is going to be more fanficky, and I'm kind of just going to be going off whatever feels right. So with that being said, I hope you guys do go on to enjoy today's video.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
Okay, so we start our story off with, you guessed it, the birth of Naruto Uzumaki. So the way that this story is all pretty much going to start off is obviously the Nine-Tails stuff happens, Obito comes in, he ends up effing shit up in the village, and Minato is like, no, you can't do that. So he proceeds to slam a Rasengan into Obito's back, causing Obito to run off like, so, you know, he leaves. And then from there, what ends up pretty much going down is, well, Minato ends up taking Naruto to where he took him to in the original. From here, what ends up, of course, going down is Minato and Kushina would pretty much end up sacrificing their lives for a young baby Naruto. However, in this version, what ends up actually happening in this current moment in time is when Naruto is basically like crying as both of his parents just pretty much stood in front of him as a gigantic claw just pierced right through their bodies, Naruto would begin crying loudly. And from here, this is when Minato would pretty much just be holding himself right in the stomach, just like coughing out blood, and Kushina would look at her, you know, her baby Naruto, as at this point the Nine-Tails is just like standing there with his nail pretty much pierced into them, would be thinking, finally got it. As at this point, you know, what ends up pretty much happening is Naruto screams would grow louder and louder and louder until eventually a bright golden light would begin to pretty much come off of Naruto. Minato and Kushina would both look back, and this is when out of nowhere they would literally be taken back in time by like let's say 20 seconds. And it is at this moment that the Nine-Tails is currently about to come piercing in at Naruto's direction. So instead of what ends up happening last time, because all of them pretty much were able to recollect what happened, Minato this time throws a kunai, grabs baby Naruto and grabs Kushina and saves both of their lives. And from here, what ends up pretty much going down is like Minato was just shocked at what just happened. It's at this point that Hiruzen would pretty much end up arriving, be right in time, and this is when Minato and Hiruzen are basically both able to pretty much fight against the Nine-Tails, hold them off for just long enough until Minato is able to finally seal Naruto with the help of Kushina, as they both end up creating an Uzumaki level seal to seal half of the Nine-Tails within Kushina and the other half within her son Naruto. And so that would conclude the Nine-Tails incident. Now, many of you guys are probably in the comment section like, Minato and Kushina survive? Hey yo, how is this possible? Well, I mean, you can only do so many things with normal what if, so including Minato and Kushina into this, it actually ends up changing the dynamic of the entire story without changing the dynamic of the entire story. And that
So you might remember how much fun using cheat codes in games was back in the day. You could max out your character's stats, enable God mode, and even unlock levels. But then something happened. Game developers decided to stop putting cheats in their games. Nowadays, you have to search sketchy websites and even risk downloading viruses to get cheats. WeMod aims to change all that. Our desktop app quickly detects the games installed on your PC and automatically displays the cheats and mods that work with them. Now you can unlock hours of extra game time in your favorite.
That's going to make more sense as time goes on. But from here, what would end up happening, guys, is I can see Naruto pretty much being raised up until he's about like 2 years old, when he's able to like pretty much walk and like babble on, because he's not able to talk yet, but you know, he can like walk and stuff. But one thing that I will tell you guys about this version of Naruto is this Naruto isn't like other kids. You know what I mean? You know how other kids develop and it takes some time? This Naruto is aware of his surroundings. This Naruto is kind of like, he can piece things together. You know what I mean? Like he can understand what his parents are saying fully, and he's going to be a little different than the original Naruto that we have in canon. And so Naruto would end up pretty much becoming 4, and on his 4th birthday, they would all be celebrating. Minato and Kushina would be in their apartment, and from here, Naruto would be blowing out the candles. It's at this point that Minato would pretty much like ask Naruto if he wants to, you know, what he wants to do with his life. And Naruto would look up at Minato saying that he wants to become a ninja and that he wants to bring about world peace. When Minato hears that, he would be caught off guard and silence would pretty much fill up the room, as he would then ruffle up Naruto's hair and say, well, if anyone can do it, I bet it's you, little guy. As at this point, Kushina would look at Minato, smile, and they would go on to pretty much cut the cake and have a really good relaxed time. So from here, what would end up pretty much going down is Naruto would end up growing up training alongside his father, Minato, who is actually the Hokage. Now Minato is not a DICK head, just like his son Naruto is, meaning he actually is competent enough to pretty much create a shadow clone and actually be there to help with his family, be there for Kushina, be there to train Naruto, create clones so that Naruto can train with those clones. And with that comes Minato discovering the secret of the shadow clone a lot sooner than he does in canon. However, by the time that Naruto was literally 4.5 years old, Naruto and Minato would have pretty much gotten around the Nine Tails trying to pretty much claw its way out of Naruto and stop him from using his chakra, just like he does in the original. But through like a half a year of training, Minato and Naruto are able to pretty much get past that. So 4.5-year-old Naruto is finally able to pretty much create a shadow clone jutsu. And at this time, Minato has already basically mastered the secret of the shadow clone. So from here, Naruto's training as a child would be accelerated significantly. And up until this point, none of Naruto's time abilities would ever show up again, because up until now, the only reason that Naruto would ever be able to use those abilities are in times of great distress. Because the first time he used it, he was not conscious of what he did. Minato wasn't conscious, and Kushina wasn't conscious of anything. All they know is that there was a bright glow from Naruto and stuff happened. But Minato would just chalk it up to being like some random thing that happened, because Naruto hasn't displayed any of those abilities ever since that day. So what would pretty much end up going down here is, Naruto continues training with his father. He keeps getting stronger and stronger up until the point where he finally pretty much has to go into the academy. And many of you guys are probably like, quick questions, Heather, how does his time Kekkei Genkai actually work? Well, let me explain. The way that Naruto's time Kekkei Genkai pretty much does work in this version, I'm just making this up on the spot, is pretty much I'm going to be saying that Naruto has absolute domain over a certain area. And with that, what that pretty much means is Naruto is able to pretty much stop people in time, or rewind people, or fast forward people, meaning instant kill, because he can age them up all the way till they're just like dead pretty much. And that is pretty much how that works. Like he can speed up people's ages, lower their ages, and then pause time and go back in time. So yeah, that's pretty much how Naruto's Kekkei Genkai time abilities work. However, one thing that I do want to note is Naruto's abilities do have a certain thing that comes with them. Naruto is only able to use them in a certain area, like a certain radius around himself. Because if he was to stop the entire world, that would just be completely ludicrous. So I'm going to say that he has domain over a certain area. And the area is pretty vast. Like, don't get me wrong. It's about a block. Let's say it's about I don't want to say a mile because that's just insane, but I also don't want to say something too small. Let's say it's about the size of the area of the Nine Tails and him, like that size, the Nine Tails and himself. Yeah, that's about how big he can control it. I don't know if that's too much or too little, but yeah, let's just go with that for now. Just keep in mind that that might change as the story goes on, depending on how I feel. But yeah, that's pretty much how this story is pretty much playing out. I really need to stop saying pretty much. But yeah, so what ends up happening here is Naruto would continue growing up until he eventually has to make his way towards the academy. And at this point, I'm just gonna say it, Naruto was literally being trained by the 4th Hokage, somebody who was a prodigy in his own right. However, Naruto, he far exceeds any of those levels that Minato had as a child, because having the abilities of the Nine Tails within himself causes Naruto's strength to be boosted up by quite a lot. So he has superhuman strength, and his healing abilities are pretty insane to say the least. So that's how Naruto's able to pretty much be strong. Not only that, but Naruto actually has access to all 5 chakra natures and is pretty much a genius in his own right. So when he does end up pretty much making it to the academy, what ends up going on here is Naruto would end up pretty much just acing through everything. Like, the first year that he's at the academy would pretty much just be blown by, and Sasuke would like just take note of Naruto, because keep in mind, Sasuke at this point doesn't have that same thing that happened with the Uchiha that happened in the original, where they got segregated and were like, you guys were the cause of the Nine Tails incident. That doesn't happen because Minato still is alive. So when it comes to Sasuke, he's in a much more positive light, and he doesn't really care too much about being the main center of the attention. However, he is going to be a little bit jealous of Naruto because of just how powerful he is, and this causes Sasuke to want to train with Itachi more and more often. And because Itachi doesn't have to deal with the coup d'etat, he can actually have time to help with his brother's training. But seeing as it's a little Sasuke, not much is actually going to be done, to be honest. So just take Sasuke's training with Itachi with a grain of salt. So what ends up essentially going down from here is Naruto and Sasuke would pretty much fast forward all the way until the final day of the academy. And at this point, Naruto has actually become far more powerful. He has grown in size, and Naruto actually learned an ability from his father Minato that Naruto didn't really end up thinking of using. Minato taught Naruto how to pretty much put chakra into things that he uses to fight. And so with that, Naruto decided that he was going to pretty much use weapons to his advantage. So Naruto not only fights with his hands, but Naruto actually fights with a sword. He uses an underhand grip whenever he's fighting and messing around, but when he takes it seriously, he of course switches to the normal grip, which is, one-handed style, where he just comes in and starts effing stuff up, you know what I mean? So yeah, Naruto is pretty much a genius in his own right. So when him, like that size, the Nine Tails and himself, yeah, that's about how big he can control it. I don't know the time he used it, he was not conscious of what he did. Naruto's hair and say, well, if anyone can do it, I bet it's you, little guy. Goes on. But from here, what would end up happening, guys, is I can see Naruto pretty much being raised up until he's about like 2 years old, when he's able to like pretty much walk and like babble on, because he's not able to talk yet, but he can like walk and stuff. But one thing that I will tell you guys about this version of Naruto is this Naruto isn't like other kids. You know what I mean? You know how other kids develop and it takes some time? This Naruto is aware of his surroundings. This Naruto is kind of like he can piece things together, you know what I mean? Like he can understand what his parents are saying fully, and he's going to be a little different than the original Naruto that we have in canon. And so Naruto would end up pretty much becoming 4, and on his 4th birthday, they would all be celebrating. Minato and Kushina would be in their apartment, and from here, Naruto would be blowing out the candles. It's at this point that Minato would pretty much like ask Naruto if he wants to, what he wants to do with his life. And Naruto would look up